Hi friends, today we'll be dealing with a topic called Bank Audit under CBS as a part of Advanced ITT course Online Faculty Development Program. I am D. Premnath, Chartered Accountant from Hyderabad. At the outset, I thank the Institute for giving me this opportunity to share my views and thoughts. Learning objectives of this program is software usage in banks, and usage of Finacle and banks at NCS, and data extraction from Finacle, then bank audit under CBS. Session plan, general concepts of CBS and Finacle, security features in Finacle, overview of Finacle, various menus, commands, options of Finacle, various menus, commands, options of banks at NCS. These are the topics that we'll be dealing today. We have said that we are going to deal with audit under CBS. Audit under CBS is information technology related audit. So we need to understand the relation between audit and IT. Basically, any functions of chartered accountants flows like this: collection of information, summarizing and classification, analyzing, interpretation and decision making, and reporting. Not only audit, for any activity of a chartered accountant, it flows in the same order called collection, summarizing, analyzing, interpreting, and reporting. Now, IT. How is IT related to audit? In IT also, IT I mean information technology, we take input, we process and output. The IT does input, process and output. This input, process and output is done through arithmetic and logical operations. Manually also, we do this processing by arithmetic and logical operations. Say for example, I am doing sales audit. I collect all the information of sales, then I sum up, I add, I want to get the average sales, so I divide, and I want to arrive at a percentage of sales tax, so I multiply and then again divide. So I'm using arithmetical operations. So in case I wanted to have a sampling of more than 1 lakh sales, so I use a greater than or is equal to or less than operations. There's nothing but arithmetic and logical operations. So IT also is much more capable of doing arithmetic and logical operations with more accuracy. Now this arithmetic and logical operations in IT is carried out by hardware and software. Hardware and software can handle huge amount of data accurately and can store for future purposes. But whereas it comes to the manual function, we have certain limitations in holding the data, holding the calculations and so on and so on. And also the IT is now capable of interpretation and decision making through the process of, for the purpose of interpretation and decision making, we use artificial intelligence in IT function. And reporting also uses artificial intelligence. Now, having said so, let us do what systems cannot do. So when you look at the CA functions, we collect information, system is collecting information. Summarizing and classification to arithmetical and logical operations is carried out by hardware and software. Analysis is done by hardware and software. Interpretation and decision making, now it is capable in IT. Now reporting is also capable of IT. So let us use systems, or let us do what systems cannot do. This is the relation between the IT and audit. This is more important to understand. This is more important from the CBS point of view, because CBS is more of various components like hardware, software, networking components spread across the world. We need to understand the flow of data. From that perspective, we need to first understand the CA functions and IT functions. Now, the relevant tools in IT for the purpose of audit is word processing for the purpose of reporting, compiling data. Then spreadsheets are used for analytical calculations. Databases are used to store the data. then ERP and accounting softwares, then OS and utilities. These are all the parts and parcels of CBS, and then hardware, computers, printers, networking, communication devices, all these put together is a part of CBS. We need to understand all these things to carry out an audit under CBS. So let's try to integrate the chartered accountant functions with IT tools. Now, audit. We have understood about technology, we have understood the process of audit. Now let's try to understand audit. Now in the audit report, they say 700, we consciously say that we have conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards in India. Those are SA 230 and so on and so on and so on. Now any non-compliances with these standards will attract penalties under Chartered Accountant Act Section 21. So we need to be conscious in carrying out audit using all these standards. Now, having said the audit has to be carried out as per standard. We all know any manufacturing audit is also, any manufacturing is conducted as per some standards, ISI standards. So an audit also has to be conducted through a standard. Accounting is done through our accounting standards. Now the audit is to be done as per the auditing standards referred on this. Now, there is one, which is a standard which talks about that we need to look into the information technology. That is, there is one standard which says that we need to understand controls, we need to understand the environment in which the system is working. Those are this SA 315, then internal control evaluation, again SA 315. So now SA 315 is most important in the auditing standards. Unless we understand the systems, we cannot go in for audit. So SA 315 plays a dominant role in carrying out the audit. Now what is this SA 315? The SA 315 is identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. Now for our purpose, the entity here is banking. So the business of banking, we need to understand, one has to understand the business of banking is nothing but collecting deposits, then lending, loans, LCs, guarantees, and so on and so on and so on. And now, environment. And now this business is run through an act. This is run through an act called Banking Regulation Act, in addition to the Companies Act, in addition to FEMA, in addition to Negotiable Instrument Act, and so on and so on. As I say this, we also need to understand the auditing standards clearly says that we need to consider the laws and regulations that govern audits. The standard says that we need to understand various laws that govern. So as a part of that, I again say here, we need to understand the act which governs the business. That is the entity and its environment. The environment, entity and its environment. Now the business is carried out, banking business is collecting deposits and then lending loans, LCs and guarantees. This is run by a Banking Regulation Act, and all these activities are accounted, and these are accounted as per the accounting standards issued by ICAI. And all this accounting business compliances are now captured through CBS. Now this is a crux, and this is what SA 315 says, that we need to understand CBS, we need to understand banking regulation, we need to understand business, we need to understand auditing standards, we need to understand accounting standards. Now let's move into CBS. Now before moving into it, the materiality and audit risk also has to be understood with respect to SA 320. Now the materiality and the audit risk. The audit risk in banking is loans issued or not used for the purposes for which it is sanctioned. Now prudential norms are not followed. Accounting treatment is not in accordance with the accounting standards. Controls under CBS is not adequate, is a major risk in our audit. We need to understand this. That's what SA 320 says this. Now in this program today, let us try to understand, let us try to highlight through analysis on the real-time banking data, how loans issued are not used for the purposes. Let us also try to understand the prudential norms like NPAs, calculation of NPAs, and how to filter out the NPAs that are not captured by the CBS. And also let us try to understand the accounting treatment, and let us try to understand the controls, various controls in CBS, which are not adequate. Now, session plan today, as I said, that general concept of CBS in Finacle. Now, let's try to look into these issues as a part of SA 315, general concepts. As we all know, the bank is having branches wide across, not only branches, any person sitting across the globe can today log on to CBS. That's what is core banking solutions. That is, every customer or every branch is now connected to the banks. In that perspective, one need to have a sole ID and set ID. The sole ID is service outlet ID, that is a branch or a bank office. Then set ID is branch bank office who initiated the transaction. To understand more about this, let's compare this sole ID with the income tax returns that we file on a day-to-day basis. The moment you file a income tax return on the net, you get an IP address printed out from the system through which you have uploaded. So that's an IP address from which to track. In the same way, a person has a PAN number. In the same way, a bank will have a number, a back office will have a number. This will help the persons to identify which branch has initiated this transaction. So for that reason, it needs to have a sole ID and it needs to have a set ID, so that whatever transactions that has taken place across the globe can be tracked easily. Now, transaction ID and a date. We all know again, every transaction that is posted across the globe into the CBS needs to be tracked and controlled. For that purpose, every transaction has a unique number generated after completion of the transaction through transaction module. The said number along with the date can track a particular transaction from the database as to which branch or which person has carried out. Again, I drag your attention towards that income tax returns filing, wherein once you upload the return, the acknowledgement generated has a last 6 digits, has a date, meaning that the serial number and the date along a serial number and the date is tracked through a unique number generated wherever tax returns are filed. From wherever you file a tax return, a unique number is generated. Through that you can track when it is filed and the numbers and so on and so on. So this is the concept of transaction ID and date of Finacle. The transaction types and subtypes. So it's not only the transaction ID, the transaction type also needs to be captured. That's nothing but the cash and cash items, cash receipts, cash payments, then the account cash receipt and cash payments. This is something which is similar to the tally kind of environment, where every voucher you have, is it a cash payment, is it a cash receipt or a bank receipt, bank payment, general voucher, and so on and so on. In the same way, you have various transactions detailedly captured through this classification. Now let's try to understand the account formation with separate account formation also has a logic here, wherein you can just see here the account number has these figures here. The 99 talks about the type of the branch code, and 05 talks about the type of account, and the last digits talk about the account number. So this is how an account is structured, so that one can easily identify what type of account is it, one can easily identify what type of branch code is it, and the account number can easily be understood. We need to understand the way in which the account is structured. The reason why we have to understand the account structure is, I'll just demonstrate a text file which contains the account numbers. Can you see here the account numbers here? It's an account number from which the amount is transferred. Now, if I have to analyze as a part of audit from whose account, from which branch this account is transferred from one account to the another account, we have to look into the data structure that I have said earlier here in this. So this is the basic purpose for which we are trying to understand how an account is structured. Now, as a part of audit, if I have to make an analysis as to from which bank, from which kind of account the amount is moving as a part of audit, then I can dump this into Excel, which I'll be covering a little later. And then we go on analyzing the type of account, from which account to which account the amount is transferred, how many times the account is transferred, and such things can be done as a part of audit. Now, coming back, general concepts in Finacle. Master level configuration, we need to understand from master level configuration, account level configuration, pointing type accounts, interest table maintenance, interest flags, and register type and subtype of trade transactions. For this, let us try to move on into a document where you have different modules of Finacle, and then let's try to understand from that document. This is a document where it precisely talks about Finacle features, why Finacle is used, and the menu-driven. This Finacle works with menu-driven, unlike in Tally. Now, once we are into Tally, you want to look at the data. You have to go into Gateway of Tally and then press B. The balance sheet opens. But here in Finacle, it's not the case. It's everything towards the menu-driven. And you have various modules. Let's try to look into the, before going into the modules, let us try to look into the security concepts in Finacle. We have multiple levels of security, that is OS level security, and then database level, and then application level. In addition to this, you have a maker-checker concept, and finally you have controls, system controls, where you have a warning, where you have an exception, and you also have an error messages in this. Now let's try to look into the OS level securities, that is operating system. Suppose if someone wants to log on into my or into your laptop or into your desktop, you might have set a password, or the handheld devices today is a smartphone. If someone wants to access it, you have to draw a picture there, or you have to type a password there. So in the same way, if someone wants to access a system, you will have a OS level controls. Then OS is an application level profiling, and then it has direct login to the, once you go onto the system, then you are accessible. You open the OS, you log on to the system, then you can go to the level of applications or database level. So to prevent them in going into the application level, again you have a security levels in application, like menu level controls you have user level, you have again product level, you have account level, and transaction level. Say for example, you want to go into a menu level controls. First of all, if you are not allowed to move into application, like say for example, Finacle has a password. This is a menu. This is application control, application level control, where unless you use this password and unless you use your username and password, the system will not allow you to go into. Now to change these password settings and all, now you have to use this menu option called PWMNT. Now where do I need to type these menu commands in the system? Let's try to look into the screenshot of Finacle. This is a screenshot of Finacle, wherein this is the menu option where you need to type whatever commands you wanted. For that matter, how many commands are there in that? Let us try to see. Now, there are various menus. As I said earlier, under Tally, you go into Gateway of Tally, press B, balance sheet opens. Once a balance sheet opens, you can take any data, whatever you want it, and you can view, you can do whatnot. But now under Finacle, it's not the case. It is highly controlled environment because each user has his own profiles to go into. Now let us see quickly what kind of profiles we have in Finacle. These are all the different types of users that you have in Finacle. Like every person who can log on officially to the Finacle or to the CBS will have a code or will have a power. For a customer who can officially log on to the website, to the web banking, to the internet banking, his code or his power is just 25. Meaning he can change his password, he can transfer money, he can generate his own account statement. His powers on the internet banking is very much limited. But at the same time, look at the powers of a branch manager here. Look at the powers of a branch manager on this in the system, wherein his power is 900. But at the same time, look at the power of managing director is just 800. And this clearly says here that the branch internal auditor or the branch internal auditor or the branch external auditor also has a power of 350 and 360, meaning that an internal auditor or an external auditor can also log on to the system and carry out the audits in the CBS environment. Now, these are all so many users whose powers are based on his rights and privileges. These powers are decided, meaning that you have so many people logging on and carrying out work under CBS environment. To understand master level configurations under CBS in Finacle, let us now move on to the screenshots of Finacle. As I said, to operate Finacle, we need to know a lot of commands. Once those commands has to be typed at this menu option. Now, for how many menu commands are there for the purpose of operating Finacle? There are thousands of menus to operate Finacle. Unlike in Tally, we don't find any much menus in Tally. It's just go on to gateway of Tally, and then on the right hand side you find a very few menu commands there. But in Finacle you have thousands. In those thousands, which are all the menus commands that are useful to a chartered accountant? Let us try to have a look at those menu commands. Now, look at the types of menus that we have for the purpose of audit here. It's almost running into 341 types of menus that we have to use as a part of audit. Now, do one need to remember all these menu commands? I say no, we need not remember any menu commands, but we know what activity we need to do under bank audit. Now, let's take for example, I wanted to find out the overdues, which is the major focus of an auditor in the CBS. Like, what are all the commands that are available for overdue? I just see here you have a drop down with this select from this filter, text filter. Through this text filter contains type here overdue. Now it will filter out all those options, all those menu commands which we have to do with the overdue workings. Now in the same way, say for example, I wanted to do something on TDS. I want to carry out TDS procedures or TDS compliances under CBS. Now what reports are there for TDS? I just say type here text contains TDS, and these are all the menu commands that are available for extracting the reports related to the TDS reports. Right. Those commands needs to be typed here and then carry out the audit. Now, as a part of master configuration, now we are trying to understand how to create a master of a customer. Now, this is a command that we need to use to create a master under CBS environment. That CUMM has to be typed at this location. Now, once you type CUMM at this location, the screen comes out. Now we are trying to create customer master maintenance. A is for add. This is what you have to type here. A, which has a blue kind of letter, meaning that it is already A is defined in this. Now, customer master name has to be created. Now let us try to understand the validation controls as a part of application controls, application programming in CBS. Validation controls are for the purpose of prevention of fraud or errors into the system. The system should throw away the errors that are coming into. Now for that, validation controls are used. Now let us try to understand the CBS environment with respect to the name. Now once name has to be fed into the system here in this particular case it is Rajwan Singh. Now if intentionally or unintentionally, if someone wants to type the name as RAAJ WAN and SING, whether the system will accept, I say yes, system will accept whatever you type it. But is it a good validation control? I say it is not a good validation control. But look at the MCA portal, ROC's MCA portal, wherein you wanted to type a company name. The system doesn't allow the company name to go into the system. It will first ask the SIN number. Once you type the SIN number, the system will automatically drag out the name of the person with prefill. Now this you could have seen even in ITR 123456 of Java version, where you have a prefill facility where you type the name of the PAN number, ID and all. You once log on into it and then say prefill, the system will automatically take out the details that are there in the database. That is a good validation control. But do we have such kind of things in the banking environment? It is not there. The reason is you can't expect all the 120 crores of population to have an ID. If once an ID is not there and that database is not maintained in a bank, how do we expect that the name could be validation? Now this is a serious challenge to the audit or to the banking from the KYC point of view. Hence, I say here there is a validation challenge in CBS where we need to rely more on the physical controls than on the system controls. This is one such name. Now comes your status or say constitution. Whether if I type here constitution for this individual as a public sector PSU, will the system accept? I say yes, the PSU. If you type here for an individual as PSU, the system will still take on. Meaning validation controls with respect to name are weak in CBS, where we need to go on for much of the physical controls than on the system controls. Now you can just look into the kind of data that the bank is collecting, and on all these things we need to understand the validation controls. Not only this, one has to understand from the audit point of view the relevance of each and every data that is collected through this screens. Does these data that is going into the database has any relevance on the balance sheet or has any relevance on the prudential norms? We need to understand if the data that is collected through all these screens, if any of such data has a relevance on the balance sheet or has a relevance on the notes on accounts or relevance on NPA or prudential norms, chartered accountants or the auditors needs to be much careful, because the validation controls are weak, meaning that the input process is weak, processes input is weak, process will be weak, and the output also will be weak. It is nothing but we are seeing here a garbage in and garbage out. So as a chartered accountant, we need to be much careful in understanding the relevance of these fields to the financial statements. Now once you fill into this, you can just see here the next screen is this. And here it is asking about the addresses and so on here, and each and every field has its own relevance. In this way, you have 18 screens of data that goes into the CBS. Let's quickly run through the screens that are there for capturing. I will not be explaining each and every screen of it, but let's try to have a look at the amount of data that is captured by the CBS through these screens and its relevance in the financial statements. Now this is one more screen here, and it talks about customer field, the business activities, assets, development. It's trying to capture the financial statements of a particular borrower from the KYC point of view or for any other point of view. Now you have a text here, and then the customer master here, and then it's asking about the tax withholding taxes, that is the TDS related issues. Now it's talking about date of birth. Then it talks about name again. Then it goes on. After these many screens, you see here the account is now opened. Now once an account is opened here, now furthermore processing has to be done. A master is created. After master is created, again we have to look at whether the person for whom the master is created, will he be doing a savings deposit account, will he be opening a current account or a fixed deposit or a guarantee or whatever it is. So depending upon that, furthermore screens are given here. Look at here, the savings bank deposit is linked to a sub-GL code of 10400. The moment you type 10400, the savings deposit will come automatically here, and the rate of interest, etc. will automatically come here. Now look at the exception limits definition here. Now cash exception limit, here you have why this is kept here. We all know that when an account is opened for the first 6 months, the savings bank or the current account has to be closely monitored from the KYC point of view, whether huge cash is deposited or withdrawn, and after some time the account is closed. To monitor that, the system should automatically highlight unusual cash deposits and withdrawals. How will the system identify unusual cash deposits and withdrawals? The system will identify unusual cash deposits and withdrawals only when a user feeds in this data. Now, if this data is not fed in, the exception report will not be generated. This is what an auditor has to look into. More than that, one more question that arises is, like in ITR 126, unless I type the PAN number, the system will not validate my return. Unless I give my mail ID, unless I fill in the particulars that are mentioned in red font, unless I feed in, that page doesn't get validated. Now we have seen here there are 18 screens that has to be fed in to generate one savings bank account or any account. In that case, if the banker doesn't fill in any of these things, will the system validate? We have seen, yes, some banks databases, some banks softwares, if some of these data are not fed in, the system will automatically go on into the next level, meaning that the system may not capture most important data in this. If the system is not capturing this, then the impact is there on the output process. Say for example, if a PAN number is not given here, how will the system deduct tax? If PAN number is not given here, it has an impact on the TDS, where if PAN number is not there, the rate of deduction may go up to 20%. So the system must and should have a PAN number. If PAN number is not there, it should go for Form 66A, Form 66. So in these kind of issues, a chartered accountant has to be very clear in the bank audit. Now, furthermore, you can also look into the rate of interest that has to be fed into the system here. Now, the question is, can I force any whatever rate of interest into this, or will the system will take these data from the database? Yes, for savings bank, the moment you mention it as a savings bank, automatically it will directly take this interest rates from the database. Now we have to understand which are all the data that comes out here automatically, pre-filled, like the case of pre-filled, because it has an impact on the numbers of profit and loss account or on the balance sheet. Now, so once in the master level configuration or in the account level configuration in CBS, the auditors has to be much more careful in understanding what are all those commands which will make a prefill, or what are all the fields where you manually enter figures, and in the manual entering or enforcing the data into this, what are all the data, what are all the controls that the system has. Once we need to understand this carefully. Yeah. This is about master level configuration and account level configuration. We have tried to understand through the screenshots. Now let's try to move on into next concept. We have also understood this withholding tax flags in the account master level configuration. We have understood the exception level controls here. We have understood the general ledger, that is, we have seen the cash subledger code there through these functions. So we have seen in the screen there, A is for add and I is for inquiry, M modify, delete. In this way, these commands are used on the Finacle screenshot at that particular place. Further concepts in Finacle or transactions events entered by a user are categorized as entered by, posted by, verified by, deleted by, and modified by. The system wants to control who has entered it, who has posted it, who has verified it as a part of maker-checker concept, and who has deleted it or modified it. Now, further to this, you also have a warning signals called exception types. These exception types are warnings are, say for example, while we are processing ITR 1 to 3, ITR 4 or ITR 6, in that process, when you try to complete the balance sheet and go on to the next sheet, if the balance sheet is not tallied, the system will warn that the balance sheet is not tallied. Would you like to go further? That is only a warning. So in the same way is an exception. The exception here is in the banking environment. If a borrower has crossed its CC limit, say for example, if 10 lakhs is given as a CC limit and he has already used 10 lakhs of limit, and now a check for 2 lakhs has come here, now it will say it is your transactions, your limit is already exhausted. Now, the banker has some discretionary powers, borrowing powers, some discretionary powers as a part of delegation of authority, where he can increase it to 10% of the limit. Now, he can authorize 1 lakh as a transaction there. So, it is an exception. Through this exception, with a maker-checker concept, where it is verified by, through that process, an exception can go on. The other one is an error. Say, considering these error under our ITR processing, ITR 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you type a wrong PAN number formulation, like say for example, you type 11-digit PAN number, system says it is error. So in the same way, under CBS also, as a part of validation controls, if there are any errors, system will automatically throw those errors. These are all the concepts of Finacle. Further, we were talking about maker-checker concept in the Finacle. Let us try to see here what a maker-checker can do in this. Now, maker can enter and post. Checker can post and then checker can verify. These combinations are well built into the system through their user IDs, which has privileges that we have discussed earlier. These are all the user IDs which has a privilege that we have already discussed with. The other concepts, furthermore concepts under CBS is inventory locations. These are the inventory locations like XXXT and then DLFL and EM, and then limit and limit not concept. Limit and limit not concepts are something with the account level as well as the node level. Let's try to understand this from the point of an example that is given here in the next slide. Right. I was talking about limit node. Let's try to understand the limit node. Let's look into here a borrower, a funded borrowing, and non-funded. Funded is term loan, working capital, CC, and bills payable, and etc. Now here you can see it is 300 and then 550 here. The total funded is only 500, and non-funded here you can see LC can be 300 or BG can be 300, but the total non-funded exposure cannot be more than 500. And total exposure here you can see, though it is 550, total funded exposure cannot be more than 500, and 500 it is 1000. Now this scenario has to be captured in CBS, which CBS can handle this, meaning that a borrower can have maximum of 500 funded facility and maximum of either 300 of BG or 200 of LC, or 300 of LC or the balance of 200 and BG. The system will stop at this point of 1000 exposure, and more than that, if there is anything crosses it, the system will stop him crossing this. This is what is a concept that you have inbuilt in CBS. Let's come back to security aspects in Finacle. There are multiple levels of security, that is OS level, then where access cannot be made to the operating system. It's more of like a physical access control. It's more of like a system control, where the moment you switch on your system, it will ask for a password. That is OS level. And once you are into the system, you may go into the database level. So there are again database level protections where unauthorized persons cannot enter into the database levels. Now there are application level controls. Those are menu level, user level, product level, and transaction level. Now we have seen earlier various users we have seen on the system. These users have privileges. Let's say, for example, cashier has a privilege of only entering cash or taking cash. Now, the loan manager has a privilege of maintenance of accounts under various loans. Each user will have his own privileges. Now, one particular manager who deals with vehicle loans, he can only look at the vehicle loans only. He cannot look at the industrial loans. And transaction level. Say, for example, if a cashier is given only cash only he has to record the cash receipts. At transaction level, he can only look at the cash receipts but not the cash payments. So in this way, the system will have security levels at all these levels. Further, you have dual controls for all transactions, that is maker-checker concept, controlled error control through warning, exception, and error. This we have just now understood. Let's go on into the overview of Finacle. This we have already looked into. This is a menu option. I have also discussed about types of various menus to go into. All this, let's just try to skip this. We have looked into various menu commands, options in Finacle in Excel, like 341 for the purpose of audit. So among that, to generate a report from this screenshot, one has to type here AB rep. Now AB rep means the AB refers to the bank. If it is Andhra Bank, it is AB rep. If it is Vijaya Bank, it is VB rep, and so on and so on. Each bank will have its own name here for the reports. Now next screen comes here as module name. To know the module name, we have to type here F2 and shift plus F4 to select the type of module. Let us see how many types of modules are there in Finacle. These are the various types of transactions or menus. You have transaction maintenance, inventory maintenance, issue of checkbooks, stop payment of checks, account lien maintenance, account freeze maintenance, TOD maintenance, clearance, issue of checks, then bills maintenance, account opening, term deposit, standing instructions, limit not maintenance, just now we have seen, and account opening we have just now seen, security register maintaining, opening of account loans, bank guarantees. These are all various menus that are available in Finacle. So among such modules, you have advances module. Under advances module, now I want to have a report. Now what report I wanted to have, I've just shown you that 341. So one such name is ADV jot. ADV jot is nothing but advances jotting. Now what happens next once I type this account jot? Now the next screen comes here. It is asking for sole ID. Sole ID is a branch code. Then after that it asks for whether the report has to be at the forefront or at background. Now forefront is like when in under the Tally environment, once you go into the background, once you go into gateway of Tally and press B, the balance sheet will open. And the balance sheet you can see on the screen. But you want the same balance sheet to be printed. Now on the left hand side topmost corner you have transfer it to Excel. But here such kind of facilities are not there under CBS for various security controls as a security reason. Now once you press here B as a background, the report will be generated at background. Now you also have a print option. Now once you say a background and then press F10, now the next screen comes here where you can see bank applet has started here. After this, you get these reports coming out here. You can select the reports out of from these things. Now this is a report that I wanted now. Now sole ID, and then from which date to which date I can select it, and then after this I have to press F3 here. Now then it goes on to the print PR. Now type PR to menu option and press enter to display the following screen. Now it comes here. After this, type the T here. Now next, it asks for whether you want it at a local printer or onto a screen. Now you can see here the report is stored in this particular, the report is now stored in this location. Now once the report is generated and stored on to this particular location in RPT, RPT is .rpt is a report. .rpt is generally a text file. Once a text file is generated, now you can dump that text file into Excel, and then we can carry out all our audit activities, analysis, and reporting, etc. in Excel. Now after the report is generated, now here you have to say Control plus E. It displays the message at the bottom whether the file has been transferred or not to the following screen. Now this is where the file is transferred. Then it gives you the path where it has saved. Now this is about Finacle. Let us quickly also look into the banks at NCS, which is a TCS developed software with the menu and screenshots. And this is banks at NCS, where through this screen we enter into the password and user ID you enter into the screen. Then you have to press here transmit. Then the screen will come out here wherein you have various options, which is something different from the Finacle. Now for inquiry or short inquiry or long inquiry is what two things you have in banks at NCS. Now here customer management you can select through this, that is OD or CC accounts you can inquire through this menu where you have a short inquiry and long inquiries. This is long inquiry and short inquiry. Now click here for long inquiry and then enter the account number and then say transmit. Then the account information comes here as to the name of the account number and the product of that account holder, and you have the rate of interest and various information is given here in the screen. You can see the rate of interest, outstanding balance, and basic information about the customer. Now further you want to see the transactions. Now you have to click onto this transaction. Then comes here, click on the deposit CCOD account for inquiries. Then you get these account informations here. Now this, once you press the next screen and next screen, then it goes on to the next, or you can select all this. You want to dump this into Excel. You can simply select all this data, then say Control C and Control V into Excel. Now the data can easily come out into Excel. Now this is the next screen, continuation of the account holder. Now it displays only 14 transactions. So for every 14 transactions, you can go on selecting and then dumping into Excel. Now there are to carry out the audit, you need to have various reports. So for those kind of reports, there are special reports that are generated at every month end under banks at NCS. These are all various reports that are useful for a chartered accountant to carry out audit. Now these reports are in text format, and these are all the reports that are most important for a chartered accountant, like irregular excess drawing, which is related to the prudential norms, irregular overdue statement of account, irregular due interest, which is an indication for the NPAs. So we take these reports and dump it into Excel and make a further analysis. And you have like this many more reports. These are all the list of NPA accounts between two dates, which is dumped every month onto every branch. These are all further CBS reports, which is interest report, then loan interest, abnormal transactions, then bills inquiry, history, rate history, then standing instructions, TDS, transactions of exceptional inquiry, customer unutilized limit, income charges report, exception reports, matured OD and FDs, then loan overdue position inquiry report, loan repayment report, then balancing and pending installment list. These are further menu-driven reports here. That is ACLI is account ledger inquiry, then account inquiry, then loan and advance overdue position inquiry, account TOD, or account turnover report, insurance expired register, loan overdue, list of pending and dishonored bills, overdue foreign bills, guarantees expired but not reversed, guarantees invoked, then guarantees issued, liability register, loan sanction. For all these things, these are all the commands that you have to type to get those particular reports under Finacle. Then change in sanction limits during the year, stock statements not submitted. To get that, you have to type these commands. Then loan account master report, you have to type this. From menu-driven, we have generated reports. Now this is one such report or a statement of account of a borrower, which is a CC account. Now we all know that the CC account has a limit. Now in this particular case, let us assume the CC limit is 75 lakhs. One of the audit risks we have said earlier while we are discussing SA 320 is loans issued is not used for the purpose for which it is sanctioned. One more audit risk we have said is prudential norms are not allowed. Based on the audit risk, that is prudential norms. Prudential norm for a CC account is continuously overdrawn. Now continuously overdrawn meaning the account is beyond the sanction limit. Now the sanction limit in this particular case, let us assume 75. Now, as a part of audit, what we need to look into is whether the account is continuously overdrawn. We need to look into. Manually, it is very difficult to find out whether the account is continuously overdrawn beyond 75 lakhs. Now you can just see here, this is one particular day when the account is less than 75 lakhs. Can we say that the account is now not an NPA? No, I'm not sure. We can't say this. So what we need to see is we have to look into the date and the closing balance on that particular date, and that particular balance on that particular day. If it is less than the drawing power, then maybe that may be a performing asset. But to carry out all this on such a big account, running into some pages and running into thousands of lines is not an easy task manually to carry out. So what we have to do is we have to dump this report into Excel for analyzing the prudential norms. So for that, what I do here is first I just say Control A to select all. Can you see this is all selected? I hope you all know this small command, Control A, Control C, and now I open one Excel. I've now opened an Excel file, and now I'm just trying to copy this into Excel. Now you can just look into here at this row number 23, date, branch, check number, withdrawal, deposit and balance is all stored in A23. But whereas for an analysis, you need to have date in A column, branch in B column, and reference in C column, withdrawal in D column, deposit, and so on and so on. To have all these things, what we need to do is you have to convert the text into columns. This is what is a part of your program in Advanced ITT in Excel. You might have learned how to convert text into column. Now let us try to do that on this work. I select on A, then go on to data, then convert text to columns. Now you get this dialog box here. I just say I have two options here, fixed width or delimit. Let us try to see the fixed width and then say here next. Now once I say next here, you can just see here the lines are automatically divided here between the datas. Now I just move on this here slightly. You can just see here the data has automatically cut it at a reasonable data. The only one thing we need to understand here is you can just see here the line is so nearing to this amount here. If the amount here is not 79 but it is 120, the 1 may stay here and 20 may stay here. In that case, the data is not properly split. So what I say is you can just hold this line and then move it little bit away. Now, so you need to ensure that the data is not unreasonably cut. So I also do the same thing here. I just move this line towards this digits and here also again, and I create one more column here by click. Now I just say next. Now by saying next here, it comes and stops at this data here, and then this is saying here general. This is not general, this is a date column. So I select date. Date, is this date is month, date and year? Is this month, date and year? No, this is date, month and year. So I just select this as date, month and year, and next. If there are any columns which are not required for us, you can delete. Now you can just see here this last column I don't require because there is no data here. I select this data and say do not import, and next say finish. Now you can just see here the data is well organized, date in date column, branch in B column, and description and check number, withdrawal, deposit and balance. Now one interesting thing that you need to understand here is it is coming in date, month and year, though you have selected as month, date and year. Yeah. Now look at here, first it is coming month, date and year. This is because under the control panel, under the regional settings here, you find month as first and then hence the Excel is taking month as beginning. Now you can change the settings to whatever you are comfortable, like date, month and year. Why I'm selecting this to date, month and year is I want all this data to be sorted based on the date. Why I want to sort is I want to eliminate all this data which is not relevant for my analysis. This is all not relevant for my analysis. What data I want is I want only the data which has a date and these data. So all this figures data which is irrelevant to eliminate this, I need to sort. To sort that, if I sort it, first comes here month, but whereas I want date. So for that purpose, I am setting this as date, month, and year, and hence I now say apply, and then say okay. The moment you say apply, you can just now see that the date is changed towards month to the date. Now, having changed this, as I said, you can just scroll down and then see here you have a lot of this thing is getting repeated again. Date is getting again this. These headers are getting repeated again and again. And you also see here there are gaps in between the date. To avoid all these things, what I say is you just sort the data on date basis. But we have to retain these headers. So to retain these headings, these are the data that is not required. I select all this data up to this lines and then delete. Now this is also not required. I'm just deleting this. Now from here I have data. So I select the data like Control Shift down arrow, then Control Shift end. The total data is selected now. Now once the total data is selected, now I go on for sort data, sort on date. And please ensure that you click this my data has headers. Now I deactivate this. Now you can just see once I have deactivated this, you have here as column A, B, C, D, which is not relevant. Hence to avoid this, kindly click this and say my data as headers. Once you say this, you have here date and all those headers here are coming here. Now I select this date. I sort on the date basis. Now you can just see here all that data which is with date is accumulated in one place like this, and all that data which doesn't have a date data is all accumulated at the last. From here onwards you don't require this data for analysis. So what I do is I place my cursor here and then Control Shift end, delete. Now to move on to the front part, I'll just say Control Home, and even these three lines are not required for me. I just delete this. Now the data is more or less ready for my analysis here. But only thing is, you just see here, always ensure while you're working on Excel, you just see here, always ensure when you are working on Excel, you just see here, the header is much longer than the content of it. So in such cases, reduce the header name. So I just say BRNC, and in the same way, instead of so much of header, I just say here CHQ, and instead of withdrawal, I just say debit, and instead of deposits, I just say credit. Balance is just BAL. Now after redefining these things, now let us look into the resetting it to a place. Now you can just see how comfortably this data is placed. Now, our criteria as a part of prudential norms for a CC account is to find out whether the balance is exceeding the limit or not. Now this is a balance. Now whether this balance is exceeding or not, I have to type a command or a check here. To type this check here, I have to write a formula here. That is if condition. To write an if condition here, these balances are in negative. It may be a little bit hindrance in writing a formula when it is a negative. Hence what I do is I select the total G and then Control F to find minus and replace with nothing, replaces all, and now you find nothing minus here. Now I try to write here a small functional small if condition here as is equal to if G2 is greater than the limit we have assumed is 75 lakhs. If the limit is greater than 75, if it is true, I wanted to mention this as exceed. In the same way, inverted commas, for a text, we have all learned in Excel that any text has to be in inverted commas. And comma, then value if false. Value if false is less than 75 lakhs. If it is less than 75 lakhs, it is within the limit. So I just write this as limit. Now having done this, now you can just copy this to the total range by double click here. Now with this you can just see all the places it has exceeded, and you find only in some places it is limit. Now with this, can we conclude that the account is performing or non-performing? No, because this exceeded or within the limit is given not for the day end balance, but it is given for the transaction end balance. Suppose, say for example, on 3rd, it has exceeded completely. But there can be a place here where on a 9th date, it is within the limit for few transactions, and on the end of the 9th, it is again exceeded. So you cannot come to a conclusion on the transaction end balance, but you have to come to a conclusion on the day end balance. Now, how do I find out day end balance in this? For that, again, I write one more formula, day end balance. Day end balance. Now, what is day end? For that, I write one more if is equal to if double bracket open. What is day end? The second date minus first date is greater than 0. The second date minus first date, the difference between second date minus first date is greater than 0, then it is day end. If it is a day end, I need this closing balance. If it is true, if the difference is greater than 0, meaning day has ended. If day has ended, I need a day end balance. If the day is not ended, meaning if the difference between these two is not greater than 0, then I want only a 0 balance. Hence I write the formula like this and then copy it. Now here it says I have not closed the bracket properly. This is artificial intelligence, where the system itself is correcting. Now it says error, you have not closed the bracket properly. Do you want it to do it? I say yes. Now having done this, let us try to copy it to the total range. Now you can just see here, wherever there is a day end, wherever the difference is greater than 0, the day ended, and when the day is ended, the balance is coming out here. Now in this, now can I find out whether the account is overdrawn from the given data continuously for 90 days? I don't know, because there is zeros here. Now how do I filter out all this zeros? I go into data, I use filter, I select this row 1 and just say filter. Once I filter it, once I filter on this date and deselect the 0, all zeros will go away. When all zeros are gone, then you just see only those unique dates. Under these unique dates, if the limit is, if for continuously 90 days, if the limit is exceeded, then you say this account is NPA. Otherwise, it is performing. This is one way, one you can say. But should I say exceed or should I say limit? Now, after reducing the zeros here, I now go on to select, deselect and select only limit. Now you can see here, these are all the only dates in the total 365 days where the account is within the limit. Now we have to look into quarter wise and say whether this is within the limit or not. Now looking at this, you can just see here for the first quarter, which is 30th June, at least 3 days it is within the limit. So for the first quarter, the account is performing. Now let us come to the second quarter, which is ending on 30th September. Now you don't find at least 1 day in that quarter is within the limit, and hence for the second quarter it has gone in for non-performing asset. This is one way of analysis. There is one more way of analysis. Let us try to look into, instead of this, what I do is I use pivot table. For pivot table, I select the data, placing my cursor on A1, Control Shift down arrow and right arrow. I select the data. I go into insert. pivot table. Data is selected. Always try to remember that new sheet you have always to work out on new worksheet. Now it says okay. Now what is that we need? We need date. Now I have to select the date. Select the date and put it in any of these four baskets. Now where should I put this date? Let us try to do it on trial and error basis and see what happens. I just drag this date onto the first. The date is coming like this. I'm not comfortable with this. Let me take the date onto the second. Now date comes like this. This is not a proper way of presentation. So I take the date onto the third level here. Now the date comes like this. Is what is more comfortable for my reading. Now what is the next thing I need is I need to get the day end balance. Where should I drop this day end balance? Either in 1, 2, 3 or 4. I know what happens in 1 and 2. I just put it onto the third one and see what happens. Date and figures are coming like this. It's not comfortable. So I drag it on to the fourth one. Now I get date and now I get here day end balance date wise. But whether the account is within the limit or not, I don't know. So for that purpose, I take the check and drop it into the second column. Now you can see continuously for 60 days, 90 days, if the account is within the limit, we can say that it is performing or non-performing. This is how we are trying to analyze an account from a text file like this, where we cannot come to a conclusion whether the account is performing or not. We have dumped this into Excel and then we have carried out those activities. Let us try to recapitulate what we have been doing since 1 hour. We have tried to understand transaction code through the CBS, that is 341 commands. After understanding that report, we have opened the report, we have dumped that report of text file into Excel. We have used a small command like Control-E and Control-C. We have opened an Excel file. We have tried to copy it at cell 1 and selected, click on the data tab. We have converted that into text to columns. And after that, you have used fixed width, adjusted the lines to avoid data split, and then you have adjusted the date through control panel, and then we have eliminated the junk by sorting on date, and then after that we have used pivot table to find out these. Now we have also understood it's not that only prudential norm an auditor has to be bothered about. We have also understood whether the fund sanctioned has been used for the purposes for which it has been sanctioned. Now, how do I find out that? Now, let us try to select on this and then go on for data and filter. Now, let us see here, you have a cash self-withdrawal. Let us try to see how many self-withdrawals are there from this. Text filter contains self. Now these are all the cash withdrawals. Now you can just see the normal things, and the last two things is abnormal. Abnormal should raise, the auditor should have a professional skepticism in asking something unusual or abnormal. These two things are abnormal than compared to this. This you have to find out why so much of cash has been withdrawn. In addition to that, let us also see some more deviations or diversion of funds. Now you can just see here ECS, debit Citibank. Now let's try to see how many Citibank entries are there. Text filter contains Citi. Now you can observe here ECS debits are towards Citibank loans. This is nothing but from a CC account an amount has been transferred to repayment of term loan. We all know that the CC account is sanctioned for the purpose of working capital. But whereas now you see here the account is used for repayment of term loans, which is not for the purpose for which it is sanctioned. In the same way, you can also observe here HDFC. Now let's try to see how many HDFC details are there. HDFC contains from the text. Now you can find here so many HDFC accounts are there, wherein the check serial number is there, and every month the same amount is being given to service the term loans. Now we are able to see in the beginning here, two bank names as Citi and HDFC. But in an account running into thousands, we don't know how many banks are there which are servicing the term loans. In that case, how do I find out? The concept what we have followed here is the account check number should be in serial form and the amount is same. So for that, how do I find out that the check number serials are followed? So what I do now is I just select the total data and sort on not on date, but now I sort on check number. Now once I sort on the check number, let us try to see where the check numbers will start now. Now you can just see here the check numbers are starting from 2975, and you find here the check number is repeated 4 times. It is unusual. The check number should not repeat more than 1 time normally, but here you see 4 times the check number is getting repeated. Now professional skepticism should rise, and we should ask the banker why this is. And when you ask this, the banker will say, sir, a check has been deposited for 2975 for this amount, and the check is purchased or discounted, and the check is cleared and the check is returned. Meaning this is a check discounted which got bounced. And interestingly, observe here, when the moment the check is deposited, you find the limit has come down within the limit, and the check is bounced, it has again exceeded. Now in this way, is this the only one time this is being done? No, you find here again 4 times the check is repeated. Here again 4 times the check is repeated. Again 4 times the check is repeated. Meaning this is an unusual thing. This is called as kite flying operation. This is called as a fraud, banking fraud. There is one such banking fraud which is called as check discounting, and people normally call that as misusing the banking facilities. Now you find here a kite flying operation being done repeatedly, and interesting thing is, whenever the check is discounted for the purpose of bringing it to the limit, and immediately for those days it is within the limit, and after that this is exceeding the limit. Now this is one kind of fraud. Now what we are trying to do, we are trying to find out, is there any deviation by finding out the check serial, but something has come out here in the form of a check discounting fraud. But now let us try to understand here, is there check serial number with same amount? Yes, you find here check serial number and same amount which has gone to the Standard Bank. And you'll also find some more personal loans of SEMA, which is something which is again check serial number and same amount. This is nothing but what we have discussed. This is what we have said. Audit risk. Audit risk is loan issued is not used for the purposes for which it is sanctioned, and prudential norms are not followed. By extracting the data from the real-time CBS, by using Excel, we could able to carry out the audit procedures, these 2 audit procedures. Now till now we have seen prudential norms on CC account. Let us now have calculations of prudential norms on term loan. Now this is one report that is extracted from the CBS, which has contents of loan number, name, balance, principal debit, principal received, interest debited, interest recovered. Now we all know the NPA norms for a term loan is, if the account is overdue for, if the interest or installment is overdue for 90 days, this is a non-performing asset. Now here you have principal debited during the year, principal received during the year is 0, interest debited, interest recovered is 0. Now from this let us try to find out the amount of NPAs. we all know in principal is debited during the year is 25,000, but during the year not even single paise is recovered, nor the interest nor the principal is recovered, meaning that this account is nothing but a non-performing asset. Now this is an NPA statement given by the banker, which says these are all the NPA accounts. Now let us try to see whether this particular account which we have said is NPA is appearing in the banker's NPA account or not. I just say Control C here, and then in this Excel, let us try to find out Control F, Control V, and then find next. Yes, you find this account banker has already made it as non-performing asset. Now, if the bank has 3,000, 4,000 accounts, how do I know? How do I verify all the 3,000 in all the 3,000 accounts NPAs were properly recorded or not? To find out is much difficult. Now I randomly pick up one more account to see whether that has already been made as an NPA or not. Now we'll just see here, this is an account where either principal nor interest is recovered here. Now I just take this account here, Control C, and then let us move on into that Excel. Now again Control F, Control V. Now just see next. This account is not appearing here. Though neither principal nor interest is recovered, this account has been not made as NPA in this. Now how it's not humanly possible to check all the 3,000 or 4,000 accounts in this way. So we have to use Excel. So we have to dump this data into Excel. The commands that we have followed earlier is Control A, Control C. Now when I say Control C, Control A and C, you see here a lot of junk data which is not required for our analysis. Let us see how much of junk is accumulated at the end of the database, at the end of the report. Now what is relevant here is only up to this part. So all that being a junk, I just delete it before I take it into Excel. Before I take it into Excel, I just take it off, delete, and then there is some more junk here. This is what I'm trying to eliminate. Now Control A, Control C. Now we'll move on into. Now before copying it, I would like to rename this as Bank NPA, and let us copy that text data into next sheet, wherein I am renaming this as Audit NPA. Now on cell A1, I copy it as cell A1, I say Control V. Now earlier we have selected A at select A and then gone into data, text to columns, then it is fixed width. Then we have seen here earlier also it has already selected the proper data here. Now before saying next or finish, we have to ensure that the data is not unreasonably cut. Now I just say next here. Now earlier you have changed this format as date. Now nothing such kind of things here. Now you can just say finish. Now before we have also understood wherever data which is not required for analysis to delete. Up to the row number 13 I don't require this, I am just deleting this. In the same way I am retaining these headers, and up to this level it is not required, so I am just deleting this again. Now I want to bring all the data into one sorted form. For that I select the total data and then say data sort on account number. Now you just see here at the end of the data you find a lot of junk is getting accumulated from here. Now all this data is not required, so what I do is Control Shift and it selects all, delete. Now Control Home. Now let us try to trim these headers for proper understanding, for proper layout. Now I just say instead of principal debit I say PR debit, then PR received, then interest debit, then interest recovered. Now let's try to reset this. Now we have understood what is NPA. Now let us try to fix that criteria here as check. Now what is a check? I am trying to calculate the check here as principal received divided by principal debit. Now in the same way, I'll try to set this as percentage. So I get percentage recovered. I am trying to calculate percentage recovered here for the purpose of deciding whether this is performing or non-performing. Now I just drag this, copy it to the total range. Now you have minus figures, we have understood earlier, may create some issue. So what I do is I select all, Control F, find minus, replace nothing, replace all. Now you find here 0, and this is 100% recovery. 100% recovery is not a risk at all. This is not a non-performing, that is, this is a performing asset. Now I want to find out how many non-performings are there. Now we are trying to find out percentage. 90 days of out of 365 is outstanding is a non-performing, meaning it is 25%. So if 76% of amount is recovered, then it is performing asset. Now this is a percentage which talks about whether it is performing or not. Now let us try to sort on the last column. So Control Shift down arrow and right arrow. Then I'm trying to sort on the last column, which is named as check. Now you see here 0%. Now let us try to see how many 0% accounts are there in this, or 76 and above percent. 76 and above is what is performing. Now we need non-performing, so I filter it out on this as number filter less than 0.75. Now here these are all the accounts, meaning you can just see here there are 2107 accounts which are non-performing. But the banker is saying here, let us see how many accounts banker says is non-performing. I select here, banker is saying only 1188 is non-performing. Now this is what is the calculation. Now you need to reconcile these two. Now what we do here is, now to reconcile between these audit NPA and bank NPA, now in this master data, wherever banker has already identified NPAs, I need to identify in this master data where banker has already identified it as NPA. For that I create one column here, insert a column here, and to identify it I just write here as NPA date. From where will I get this NPA date? Now in this bank NPA, you have one column here called NPA date. Now here in this account you have, in this statement you have NPA date. In this statement you have account number. In this bank NPA you have account number. Now when in two databases or when two files you have a common field, here account number is common, and in this account number is there, which is common. So when in two files you have a common field, we can use VLOOKUP to take one of the datas in from here, and then we can track it here. What I'm trying to say here is, I want to get the account NPA date of this particular account. Let's select this, Control C, and in this Control F, Control V, then find next. This is the account, and this account date which is 28/12/2009, I want the system to pick up here automatically. So for that I use VLOOKUP is equal to VLOOKUP. Now what is VLOOKUP is explained here. Once, if you are not comfortable in writing any formula, once write the formula and then go on to fx. Now once you say fx, it will help you to write the formula. Now here you can just see here what is VLOOKUP. Looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table. Now which table it is talking about? It is talking about the bank table. It looks into the leftmost column of a bank table. In that, the leftmost column should always be the common field. In that, the leftmost column should always be the common field. The common field between this audit NPA and the bank NPA is account number. So in this bank account, in this bank NPA account, the account number should be the leftmost column. So before going into that, let us try to make this as leftmost column. So I just say select this, Control X, say Control C, and then I insert a column here. I insert a column here and then select this, Control C or Control X, and then try to copy it here. Now since there is nothing to do in this, I just delete this column. Now the account number is leftmost column. Now let's try to write VLOOKUP again is equal to VLOOKUP, bracket open. If you are writing for the first time, I said use fx. Fx is explains looks for the leftmost column of a table. The table is here is bank NPA, and then returns a value in the same row from a column you specify. Now here it is bank. The leftmost column is account number. It says here returns a value from the column you specify. Where is NPA date? NPA date is in which column? It is column number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So it is in the 7th column. Now let's try to write here is equal to VLOOKUP is equal to VLOOKUP fx lookup value. What is lookup value? Is a value to be found in the first column of the table. First column of bank NPA. First column of NPA is this account number. Next is table array. Table array is a table of numbers and logical values of that bank NPA. So it will start from here. So Control Shift down arrow and right arrow. I have selected the total table now. Before going in, I want to just put on the dollars here so that when you drag it, the figures are constant. So I put again F4 so that before and after this you have dollars. Now column number in this we have just now counted. The column number of date is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So I write here 7, and you can just see here it is 16.6, whereas we have just now seen there it was 28. Now I change this lookup value as false. Please observe here, when I write false here, the date is changing to 28/12. If I don't write anything here, you can just see here, if you range lookup is a logical value to be found the closest match in the first column. If you omit it, it is true, meaning it will take the nearest closest match but not the exact. Now once you say it is false, it will take exact match, and hence I write false. And I just say okay now. Now having said okay here, you can just see here this account is made, this account, Control C. Let us see whether this is correct or not. In this, Control Home, Control F, Control V. Now find next. You can just see this date here as 28/12, and that date through VLOOKUP the system has picked up. Now I would like to copy this to the total range. When I copy it to the total range, wherever this account number is already appearing in the bank NPA, date is pulled out. Now where NA is coming, meaning that this account is not made as an NPA in the banker. However, whether is this an NPA? By looking at 0% collection, we all know that it is a non-performing asset. So let us confirm. Let us copy this and try to find out in this. Control Home, Control F, Control V, then find next. You see that account is not there. meaning that the banker's identification of NPA is not proper. So now what we have to do here is we have to find out how many NAs are there. Now to find out how many NAs are there, what I do is I just go on to this filter and filter it out here, deselect all and select only NAs. And now you see here how many NAs here is something like 2056 accounts have skipped out to be 2056 accounts have been skipped out to be as non-performing assets. Now this is how we try to find out reconciliation between the audit NPAs that you identify as NPA, and this is the banker which has identified it, and you can just see here banker is trying to say here system identified NPA accounts, and everyone believes that the system is really identifying NPAs, but whereas we have just now seen here system has not identified 2000 accounts as NPAs, though these are all NPAs, though there are 0% recoveries, the system has not identified these accounts as NPAs. This is what is materiality and audit risk as per SA 320. We have now looked into loan issued or not used for the purposes for which it is sanctioned, and we have also now looked into prudential norms are not followed both in respect to CC account and with respect to NPAs. Now this is how Excel can be used in the audit. Now benefits of using Excel as a decision support system. You are complying with standards, various standards, that is SA 230, that is audit documentation, 300 to 499, that is risk assessments, then 350 identifying risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment, 500 we are collecting so much of audit evidence, we are carrying out analytical procedures as per 520, we are collecting so much of audit samples with SA 530, and with this we are able to carry out the audit using audit compliances by following Excel. Now the use of Excel in audit is it can carry out Excel can carry out horizontal analysis, vertical analysis, ratios, trend analysis, performance, statistics, stratifications, aging, Benford law, regression, and Monte Carlo situation. Though these three things are not much relevance in the bank audit, as we have not touched about this, we have seen now all these things have been used as a part of SA 520. Now the another use of Excel in bank audit is it will append and merge data, calculated field. Just now we have seen it is cross tabulating, it eliminates the duplicates, it has extract of filter, it can export data, it has gaps, then it is sorting and indexing, and it is joining two databases. Joining two databases in bank audit is very important. That is, VLOOKUP plays a dominant role in joining two databases, because we have said many times in a Tally environment, you go into balance sheet, you can get any data in Tally, you can drill down to the voucher level. But whereas in CBS systems, you cannot get a report in the fashion in which you want it. But the reports are generated wide reports, looking at various reports, looking at various data fields. You want to make one report, Excel plays a dominant role in that. So VLOOKUP plays again a dominant role in bank audit. The summary of it is NPA is a matter of minutes. We have just now seen. We have seen selection of LFIR cases, then observation of loans, then automated reporting, then automated working papers, then SA compliances. In all this, Excel as an analytical tool, if you recollect, since the last 1.5 hours, we have been working with only these three. Not only in CBS environment audit, anywhere where data lies, maybe it is the ERP or maybe it is various amount of databases you are following. If you can just know these 5 things in Excel, we can do great audits under not only CBS, under ERP also you can do a great job. Now I was talking about reporting under CBS or reports in bank audit reporting, documentation reporting. You can just see here, these are all the maximum number of comments that can appear. Or say for example, in a bank audit, We have to carry out credit appraisal audit, sanction and disbursement audit, documentation audit, review, monitoring and supervision audit, and bad and doubtful advances audit. Now there is almost like 152 checklist points that we need to cover. Now I need to document that I have covered all this. These are all the accounts that are in that particular bank, which is almost like 485 accounts are there. Now I need to create a documentation tool using Excel. Here I have just tried to create a documentation tool in Excel. You can just see here there is a drop down here for the account numbers. What are all these account numbers? These account numbers are nothing but these account numbers. I have tried to pull here by using data validation using list. Now let us try to understand what a data validation is. Say for example, here we have been talking about data validation under CBS. Let's try to understand in Excel what data validation is. Here I want to create a data validation under data validation. Now it takes any value. Let us see here, you type anything, the system will take. But no, I don't want any value here. I want to data validate not any value. Say whole number from 0 to 100 I want to give here. Now if I enter here 500, the system says it is error. This is a validation rules. You could have seen such kind of validations more in ITR 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in Excel. Now let's also see some more data validation rules here. Data validation, not whole number. You also have a date and length and custom and so on and so on. In one such thing is list. That is what you see here. This is what you see here, a list. You can just see here data validation, under which it is list. Now what is this list? It is, the source is defined here as account number. Let us now try to create a data validation here for the account numbers. In this, I just select all these account numbers and define here as account number and enter. Now this is defined as account number. Now I go back to this. In this place, I want to create a drop down for the numbers. Data validation, not list, not any value, list. The source is equal to ACNO, and just say OK. Now a drop down is created with numbers. Now this is how a drop down is created here. Okay, now once the account number is here, I want the relevant balance for this account number, relevant name for this account number, which is structured in this database. For that, we have already understood we can use VLOOKUP here. You can just see here I have used VLOOKUP is for B2, and the table array is the number. This is the table array. The total account is selected here, and line column number 9. Column number 9 here is the account amount outstanding and false for exact match. In the same way again, I have given you here the VLOOKUP for the name. Once you change the account number here, these outstanding and the name will change. In the same way, I have created a drop down for all these comments. For all these comments, I have created a drop down in this. Once I select the drop down here, this will change here. Let us see how practically this works. Now, let us see how practically this works. Now, for this account, I will take the physical file of this account holder and open the page, and I see the memorandum is not applicable, is not available on the file. So I just type here 1.5. The moment I type it, the relevant comment comes out here automatically. In the same way, say 2.3 is not followed, 3.2 is not followed, 4.5 is not followed, and then all these comments will come out automatically. This is, VLOOKUP. This is through VLOOKUP. This is through VLOOKUP, and this is through drop down. This is how Again, Excel can be used for the purpose of documentation as per the standards. You are also creating a documentation that you have carried out the audit in a perfect manner.